As I said, there's exceptions to every rule, and I'm teaching you here to be really aggressive in the initial part of the braking phase. Now, the exceptions to this rule is 1, when the conditions are wet or damp or cold and slippery, then you need to be a lot more careful in that initial phase of your braking. Now, the way you do that is by loading the tyre more gently initially. When the conditions are really hot and sticky, you can brake pretty much as hard as you want to initially, and the only thing that's going to happen is the back wheel begins to lift off the floor, as I said earlier. But what happens when it's cold or wet is when you first grab the front brake, there isn't enough load on the front tyre and it will lock the front wheel in a straight line. That's something that's very, very difficult to get out of. You have to have cat-like reflexes to release the brake fast enough to unlock the front wheel. And to be honest, a lot of the time that's just more luck than judgment if you do manage to do that. So the important thing when it's wet is to make sure you're braking harder upright, but making sure you're loading the front initially. The next part of this pro tip is when you're approaching a corner where you're already at lean angle when you're accelerating. Now there's a corner like this at Almeria where you go up and over a blind crest. Then as I approach that left-hander there, without realising it, I close the throttle, and there's a split second where as I close the throttle, I'm letting the front suspension load up before I grab the front brake. In corners where I'm approaching them upright, I brake really hard initially, and there's very little time between me closing the throttle and grabbing the front brake.